the last 2 weeks, the last 4 sessions, we've been dealing with line. So you've gone through 8 concepts of line. And what I want you to pull from that is that line is design, and design is how we tell our stories, okay? So for us, primarily design, we're managing line to help move the eye to ultimately to trigger an emotion in the person, okay? Spacing, which we'll get into next week, deals with the math that's incorporated in the work. And so spacing can help with storytelling, but it will support it, where design is really about the storytelling. Like, what is it that you're trying to communicate? And you can use design to do that. All right, so today will be our last 2 concepts on line. So the first concept that we're going to be dealing with is a repeating line. And let me mute all.
Is this our 4th session?
Yes.
Yep.
I'm going to mute everyone here. Okay. Continue. And then, okay, so repeating lines, when you have lines that repeat, it does a few things. One, it reveals the intentionality, because if it's repeating, then that means that's what the artist or the composer wants you to see or feel or get, okay? So it's done intentionally. It also adds a clarity to your work. So if I was audibly giving you instruction and I said, get up and go to the left, get up and go to the left, get up and go to the left, you would know what to do. Very, very clear. You get up and go to the left. But if I told you, hey, get up and go to the left, or get up and go to the right, get up and go behind the chair, you wouldn't really know what to do, and because there's a difference, okay? So having that repetition adds clarity. It also adds stability to the concept or to what you're trying to express. So if you have, let's say you want something that's calm and you put a horizontal in there, and it's just a thin horizontal across the page, it's there, but if you can multiply that, repeat it, it becomes stronger, okay? It has more stability. So that's what a repeating line is going to give you. It's going to really reveal the intentionality, the clarity, and the stability in a piece, okay? And by saying in a piece, really what I'm talking about is in that story, okay? Because line is design, and design is storytelling. So we're going to look at this piece by the great Norman Rockwell, okay? This is cool. And we're going to look at repetition in here, okay? So first thing we want to do is gray it out. Now, one trick to finding the repetition, if you need help with it, is to first look for the big rectangles. And let me show you what I mean by that. When something is repeating, there's lines that are parallel. Now, this is very important that they're parallel, because if they're not parallel, then they're going to converge at some point. So what you're looking for are parallel lines. So you can see here very clearly that there's parallel lines going on in there. That forms a rectangle, okay? There are parallel lines in here, both going vertically and horizontally. Now, you don't have to, for your assignment, get into the nuances, like not nuances, but get so anal about it, okay? We're trying to look for the big masses here, okay? And so what I want you to really look at, in this case, you're going to see these parallel lines that are going across the image here. Obviously, these go down. There's a lot of vertical thrusts in there. And same with here, coming down here. You can see that there are a couple verticals that are being repeated in here, as well as horizontals. Okay. Now, what's interesting is the repetition. You can see repetition of these horizontals coming down in the chair down there. Okay. And then you can also create a box that's a rectangle that's moving in that kind of direction, okay? Now, once you have that, then you want to basically echo. And I'm going to echo. Okay, so what you want to look for is basically your horizontal lines that are coming through here, okay? Now, when you look at that, I always look at the spaces that are created, and then especially if there's people in it, if their heads breaking into that space, usually it's communicating what the artist wants you to understand about what they're thinking. Okay, so this servant man on this, I'm assuming is a train, okay? He's looking at this little boy, but he's not thinking anything horrible or bad or aggressive or anything like that. He's just kind of smiling, right? He's enjoying this moment. It's a very like a little a break for him, if you will. On the side, so it's a very peaceful moment for him. Okay. On the side here, you see these verticals coming down through here. So you're repeating these elements. There's a little line coming through here. And so when we're repeating the lines, it's going to be very similar to the echoes and a lot of the other projects we've done, okay? But what I'm trying to get you to understand is that there's a reason why he's moving the eye up so strong, and then across, and then back down, okay? Down through here. The horizontals are coming through here, okay? So this man primarily, even though he curves a little bit, he's primarily a big vertical thrust. Would you guys agree with that? We're not going to get into value too much, but he's wearing a very white outfit, which almost blends him into the background. And what's interesting is I love how Rockwell does it, where the man kind of he's a good servant, waiter, because he's not present, but he's there, right? He's kind of blurred into the environment. He's part of the environment. I remember I had a waitress, probably the best waitress I've ever had. And we were at a hamburger place, and she was off to the side. And I remember her watching us. And we were talking, and she timed it so perfectly that when, like every 20 minutes, like he stopped talking and it's like that weird little silence, boom, she was right there, right? I hate when waiters come and they interrupt you in the middle of a conversation. It's like, I didn't want water. I'm in the middle of a conversation, right? So, but she was like hypersensitive to our tables, and she knew when to come and when to go. And you could see her, but she was part of like the energy of the environment. She knew how to float in and out. It was fascinating. So here with the boy, you can see in his hair, his face, his neck. Now we're not looking for precision in this case. We're just kind of looking for this general energy that's moving in that direction, okay? And you can feel it coming up through here. You can see it in the little lines that are going through his comic book, which is kind of funny. And so all of this is moving us up into this direction. And in this sea of and I like how when we get to his little purse, we go back horizontal. You see how when you're reading it at those nuanced levels, it brings in a lot of clarity to the image. The little boy is new to this world. He's the thing that's out, you know, like this world is so ordered and so formal and so organized, and he's new to it. He's just this little diagonal that, you know, kind of, he doesn't really know his place in it. He's trying to figure it out. And well, he's trying to order food and deal with money and trying to make decisions. It's kind of cool. So let's go here. And you can see now the basic energy of that painting, of that composition, when we're dealing with these parallel lines. Let me unmute you guys. Take any questions that you have right now. And unmute you all. So Donna,
yes.
Are you there? What are your thoughts?
I'm here. My thoughts?
Yes.
Yeah, it's really amazing. It has that very orderly elegance. And of course, my mind says, oh, it's because, you know, it's a beautiful train car, and everyone is dressed so nicely and all of that. But actually, it's in these beautiful, elegant horizontals and verticals. And then you have the fish out of water, the little boy. And it's just perfect. And would you say, DV, that a counterpoint to that fish out of water of the little boy is the round water jug right on the table? Would you say that he kind of balances it out, or what is the role of that very, you know, beautiful picture on the table? Or I know it's to get her eye back to the little boy, but I just wanted to know what are your other beautiful thoughts?
It's interesting because the picture is on an angle, right? So it kind of repeats the angle of the boy, but it's also really like the enclosure or the arabesque in this image, which is what we were dealing with last time. And when I feel it, when I feel that energy, it makes me feel this energy, right? Which is very similar to which is the back of that man's head. Okay. Let me erase all these lines because we've already got this point.
You know, DV, I would have been looking at this picture for a whole year and I wouldn't have seen it, and yet it's right in front of me. That's something.
And then you have this angle, which is this angle, okay? You have this gentle little curve, which is coming through here, which probably mimics through his eyes, okay? So this, to me, that water picture is this man. A lot of times when you see pictures in let's say Christian art, it's a symbol of a person who's being filled or who's pouring into someone else, okay? And so, you know, I think that's kind of what this picture is moving into. It's like, I like how this little steam comes through here and it breaks into this little boy's space, you know? So now I'm not, I don't know if that was, you know, just a picture that was laying around or whatever, but I do look at the design of it. and the design mimics this fella, almost to a T. I mean, it even looks the same size and stuff, so it's interesting. Okay, so let's go on. Anybody else have any other questions on the parallel lines?
I do. I have a question. Like, you did not do the windows. Was it because they were interrupted by the bodies so much that even though we know they're rectangles?
You could. I mean, you have these verticals coming down through here, which is being repeated. You got the horizontals. You got all of these horizontals in the city, which is this little man-made city back there. It's just the whole point of it. This whole entire piece is that the entire piece is verticals and horizontals to really, really, really show you that it's a stable, constructed, intentional environment. And this little boy breaks that energy because he's the little diagonal in it. Okay, he hasn't fallen in line yet. Okay, and and so yeah, that's what so I just left it out, but it falls in the same feel as the rest of the composition. All right.
Victor, do you think that the triangle napkin on the right side of the table was done to sort of repeat the diagonal of the tablecloth fold down there? Or why, do you think there was a reason to put in that little triangle shaped napkin on the table next to the pot?
There's a reason for everything. These guys don't do things without having reason for it.
Yeah.
But that's all. Once you get into the grid work in the academy, you'll understand why these things are important. And actually, next week you'll understand it even more because we'll get into gamut. But yeah, that's what we're really looking at. So right now,
Don Victor,
last 4 weeks.
Sorry, Don Victor, I got a question here. How does it differ from echoing the horizontal and verticals which we did before? Like, echoing the...
It doesn't.
It doesn't. Okay.
It's just because this is horizontals and verticals, and you did that in a thrust map and an echo map, it's the same thing.
Right.
But what I'm trying to share with you is that those were just done randomly. You felt it, you saw the horizontal, you saw the diagonal, you're just repeating what you saw. Here, you're looking now for parallel lines. And the parallel lines could be verticals, they could be horizontals, they can be an array of diagonals. And the difference right now is that you're looking for parallel lines to help to understand what the artist is reinforcing. Okay? So the exercise of the thrust map is just a way to kind of help you begin to scan an image and start pulling out information.
And let me just also add, Don Victor, the way you started, because I like to take notes. You said it so beautifully. Line is the design, and it's through line that we tell the story and help to trigger emotions. So I think Don Victor is trying to show you how this repetition of horizontals and verticals mostly are evoking an emotion of stability, and everything is very traditional and calm. And then the diagonal lines in the little boy break that energy and have a different energy. Do you agree?
Yeah. And
that's the purpose of this kind of lesson, to help us understand how we are creating the music.
Got it, yes. Okay.
Absolutely. And, the diagonal would be the dominant diagonal in the piece, and so we're not just looking for what's there, but we're now focusing. What I'm trying to show you guys is how to see and then read, right? You need to find it. You need to reveal it first and then read it or interpret it, okay? what the problem with people when they say, oh, it's open to interpretation, your artwork's open to interpretation. Well, no, it's not, unless you didn't plan it. But if you plan it, these guys would be pissed off if you came and sat in front of their artwork and started mouthing off nonsense that had absolutely nothing to do with what they put their hard work into composing, right? So, but you can't read it intelligently until you're able to actually see it. So you have to reveal the design. Then you can interpret it, because it's going to give you the boundaries and the directions and the intensities and things that you need to know what the artist is what the artist is communicating. In terms of the diagonals, so far you guys have really just been focusing more intuitively, feeling things, and then drawing and pulling them out. When Jen asked about these diagonals and the triangles, next week we'll get into actually seeing how intentional each of those angles are. Okay? And so as we go through this process, it's moving from this intuitive feeling, giving you simple marks to figure it out, and then you start to really see how intentional all of this really is. Okay? That comes next week. Stay tuned. All right. So let's move on.
I love the iPhone 7 on the table.
iPhone 7. You're hilarious. It does look like it, right?
Yeah.
It does.
Wait, what's that?
It looks like an iPhone 7 on the table.
Yes, it does. It does. I was like, oh, cell phone. Yeah, exactly.
You know, it's funny. There's this painting by Norman Rockwell where these guys are looking at this grandmother and a kid, and they're in this little restaurant, and they're saying grace, right? And I remember I walked into this pizza place, and they're all leaning over like this, you know, in the painting, and they're all saying grace. And I walked into this pizza place, and I saw this table, and they were all leaning over like that. I was like, oh, look at that. How beautiful. It's like a family saying grace, just like a Norman Rockwell painting. And then I look closer, and they're all like texting, you know.
Oh, gosh.
High point of contrast right there. This is about the boy paying the bill. Okay, so that's why that's positioned there. But we'll get to that in 2 weeks from now. All right, guys, let's move on. Now, radiating lines. What the radiating line reveals, once you reveal it, it's going to reveal something that's important. Okay? It also adds to the image speed and intensity. Okay? So now how does it do that? First of all, what is a radiating line? Let me draw a little diagram for you. If I have a point and I radiate from it lines out, that becomes a radiating point. Okay? Now, conversely, I could actually extend lines to a point. Okay? So now in this case, if I'm extending it to a point, your eye has all this space, all this gap, but as it gets closer to that point, it begins to speed up and become much more dense or intense. Okay, so you're adding, you're taking this space and you're compressing it into a point. And so that's adding speed and intensity to whatever it is that's considered important in that image. Okay. Now it could also come this way. So maybe like, you know, a painting of Jesus or something might have this light or the environment designed in such a way that it's radiating from him, you know. Sometimes you'll see that kind of thing used that something's radiating out of, or things are being drawn to, okay? So let's look at an example. Oh, I like how depressed the dog is. It's like, what the hell's going on? I lost my best friend. This is like a traditional, famous Norman Rockwell painting. So we grade it out. And we want to, what's neat about finding the radiating lines, a lot of times you'll be able to feel it because it leads to a triangle, it creates a triangle, okay? And so let's do this in white. So sometimes what you'll just do is you kind of just start and you want to find where these lines converge. Everything's coming to his little part for some reason. And then what happens is once you extend it from there, you can, you get that, you find that little point, and all of a sudden you start to see like how everything is actually designed to that little point. And so if you're sketching and you have there's a little point in your image that's very important, you can just quickly take that little sketch and start radiating points to it. And now you can quickly morph your sketch to have the lines that automatically like start pulling you towards a certain point. Okay? So that would be your radiating point. So it creates this triangle cone and that moves your eye. All right. Questions? I didn't think you were going to have any. That's pretty straightforward. So let's get into, oh, wait a second. Oh, darn it. No, okay, well, maybe I can do it this way. There we go. And then there's the energy of that piece, okay? A part of the energy of that piece. Huh, that's kind of interesting.
Shooting star.
Huh?
Shooting star.
Excuse me, Don Victor.
Yeah.
Do you believe he made it very asymmetrical so that it would be dynamic instead of being too balanced or too quiet or too staid? He could have, like my first thought was, oh, I bet it might lead all up to right where their heads join. And he didn't. He kept it to the one side.
Now,
So
why would he? You know the answer to your question. Yes.
No, I wanted to hear you say it because I don't want to assume I know anything.
So I say yes, it's intentional, but now I want you to look at the image and interpret, because of the design tells us, you would naturally think,
I think I got it.
About these two people. So it's not.
Well, hold on. The story is also about how the puppy, right beneath him, is now feeling love loss.
Okay, so if that's the case, because we could say the dominant vertical in this image goes through the boy, through the puppy. Will we all agree on that? Okay, so this image is not necessarily about the little girl.
Right. It could be about the doggy.
No, it's about the boy. It's about
the boy. It's about the boy and his love.
It's not a girl's experience. Now,
isn't he supporting her? He's supporting her. He's the main support. He's
the main support. She's leaning onto him. Now that's part of the culture, that this was painted in. I mean, today this would be considered, you know, anti-woman and whatever, but oh well.
I'll take it.
And he gave us some flowers.
What was that?
He gave us some flowers.
Yeah, so this is about a puppy love, right? This is about a little boy's first love, you know? It's not about the little girl. It's about the boy and how, you know, I don't even want to say because we're going to be on camera. But this will be repeated many times throughout this boy's life. You know, he'll have a friend and, you know, the girl comes in the picture and all of a sudden the friend's not there no more. You know, those kind of stories. And so, yeah, this is, you know, obviously Rockwell's a guy and he's expressing this concept through a little boy's perspective, not a little girl's perspective. Not saying that he didn't have the skills to do that, but that's not what the image is about. Now, people would argue with me on that, but the design supports that thesis. It's very, very clear once you look at the design what the intention of the composer was.
Is the puppy there is sort of reference to puppy love?
Now, when you're looking at the puppy, you got to be careful because you don't want to subscribe too many things to the representation. Because when you get into symbolism, which isn't bad, but at the Academy, we try to stay away from that.
Okay.
We want to really, really articulate what's going on in the image through the design, which is the energy. So the thing about Rockwell is a lot of times he incorporated puppies into his artwork, one, because puppies sell and he's an illustrator and he's trying to sell covers, and puppies and kids sell.
Okay. Okay. Don't overthink the puppy.
But yeah, I mean, and the puppy is just part of, you know, a boy's first friendship. You know, I mean, it's just part of that relationship.
I'm kind of confused by that line. Is that a ball on the end of it?
Yeah, at the bottom there.
Yeah.
Yeah, he probably was.
Is that just to pull
or
you
something.
into the picture? Is that to just lead you into the picture through the puppy, or?
It's probably designed so that when your eye comes down through this radiating point,
I see.
and then this curves through, this catches the eye and brings it back up.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Sorry, Dee, I'm going to mute because there's such a storm here.
Okay, thank you. All right, so let's get into some